Can I use... can I put this to mine? Thank you. Thank you. Well, that's going to be a hard act to follow. Thank you for being so open and transparent and everything. Now, I don't normally sound like this. At 5 a.m. this morning, I messaged Katrina and said, I've woken up, went to bed not feeling well, woken up not feeling well. Do you still want me to come? So long as I stay away from everyone. So my voice is a little bit different to what I normally sound like. I'm sorry. And I may need to use my glasses. There's a part of me that's a little bit vain, and I don't like using glasses, but every now and then the eyes get a little bit blurry. Anyway, I hope that you have all got a copy of my book, From Grief to Greatness. It's my gift to you. And this book's actually a little bit of a... Thank you. This book is actually a little bit of an autobiography, you might say. I share the nuggets in my life that helped me to overcome adversity. So I'm not going to talk too much about what is in the book because it is here, but I will touch on a couple of things that are really special and tools and ways to show up in life that I know have helped me more than anything. It was really great to hear how previous speakers were talking about the importance of family, because it's one of the things that when I'm in Parliament, I always probably shake things up a little bit and speak about things that others don't normally speak about. I speak about family, I speak about faith, and this week in Parliament I even used the name of Jesus, so it's now on Hansard, and I was really happy to do that. And I too believe that everything starts in the home. And in my maiden speech, when I did my maiden speech, I really honoured my mother and father. It's because I truly believe that that is one of the beginnings for us all. When I was a teenager, I had a lot of problems, and teenage problems that they've got now, but actually back in my day, they weren't as bad when I think, because I didn't have a phone. Like everyone's got a phone now, and I'm sure that causes so many of the problems of the young ones. But I had very low self-esteem as a teenager. And one of my friends suggested I go and talk to this elderly couple, and they prayed with me. I would have been 17, maybe 16, so what a gift at that early age to have wise counsel from a couple of very, very wise people, husband and wife. And he said to me, I'm so going off script. I wrote so many notes for today, and this man said to me, Tanya, do you honour your mother and father? Are you at peace with your mother and father? And we talked about that, and he said, you must be at peace with your mother and father, and honour your mother and father, because if you don't do that, then you won't be at peace with yourself. So I've always remembered that, because my parents were from the former Yugoslavia, loud, passionate. Dad was authoritarian. Mum at times was submissive. So I had many lessons of forgiving and forgiveness. I never forgot that lesson from that elderly couple who said, always honour your mother and father. So I just wanted to start with that because of the importance of family and that strong foundation identity of who you are and where you came from. And also, Katrina, I'm the only girl, 3 boys, and my mother desperately prayed, and then along came I. So I was the big blessing in her life. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to tell a lot of stories. I find that stories are a good way for people to remember the little nuggets. I want to talk about my driver, firstly. And my mother was one of my drivers. As I mentioned before, I grew up in a home where the father was dominant and my mother at times was submissive. But as their marriage went along, my mother's fire came up and she started fighting back. But it was so wonderful to see, because I was a personal development junkie as a teenager and growing up, and I watched my mother transform. And I also watched as she went on in her later years in life, when she felt it was too late for her to do some of the things that she wishes she did. It was too late for her to become who she knew she could. And that lesson for me from my mother is what I call the gift of contrast. And I was able to, as I got older and started nurturing and caring for my parents more, I was able to leave them in God's hands. I can't fix Mum. I can't fix Dad. I want everything for them. But the greatest gift I can give my mother and father and everyone else who I'm going to influence one day is to be different, to do things different, learn the lessons, but have that gift of contrast so that one day when I'm taking my final breath, I will be happy in knowing I did everything I can and that I hear God's words saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And that's what matters to me most. And it's using that gift of contrast from my mother particularly, who was such an intelligent woman, so gifted. She could cook, she could sew, she could do anything, milk cows. She was 8 months pregnant, milking cows and couple in the pram. She could do everything, but there was a part of her that didn't feel she was able to do as much as she could. She was a faithful servant and an extraordinary mother, but I always saw, and she always used to say to me, "Tanya, don't do what I did. Don't waste your life. Go and be who you can be. And remember, Tanya, no one is better than you." And that is the nugget that I want to share with you about self-worth, because it was my self-worth that I struggled with as a teenager. And nowadays they're calling it body dysmorphia and gender dysmorphia. In my days, we just had eating disorders. we had either anorexia or bulimia or something. It was so common in my growing up days. And that was one thing I struggled with. But I knew that manifestation of my eating habits and binging because I couldn't cope, I knew that deep down what was missing was this deep feeling of self-worth, that I am enough. So I knew that that was where I had to not do my work, but surrender. And somehow my mother must have known that her little girl didn't feel good enough. And she drummed it into me. "Tanya, no one is better than you," she would say in her strong accent. And that was one of the first tools that I used. So I'll share this as one of the most extraordinary tools that somehow I started doing as a teenager. I used to say to God, "You know what, Lord, I don't like myself that much. I don't know why, and I don't need to know why, but I know I don't love myself. However, what I do know is that you love me. So help me to somehow today feel a little bit of how much you love me, so that I can step up and walk this path of life with self-esteem." That's how I started my self-worth journey. I asked for God to instill in me self-worth. And then eventually, as I got older, more confident, had more certainty, then I was able to find that within and move forward. One of the things I did, and I'm literally going all over the place. I have not stuck to this script. One of the things that I did when my late husband, you'll read about my journey in here, okay, so I won't talk too much about my journey. My late husband, Phil, passed away 20 years ago of terminal cancer. It was a very short period of time, 5 months. And Phil wanted to write a book about his journey. He never did it. I knew to do it for him. And I went on a trip to the United States, and I was interviewed by a lovely late Dr. Robert Schuller from The Hour of Power. I don't know if you remember him. He interviewed me about my book. And so I was in between two services at the cathedral, at Crystal Cathedral. We had about a half an hour together, and it was the most magnificent half hour. And he shared with me so much depth. I don't know if you've heard of Viktor Frankl, who wrote that wonderful book, Man's Search for Meaning. That was one of the books that I read again after Phil died, and I read the book of Job, because I thought, somehow, for some reason, God, you've put me through this darkness. I will honour you and trust that you know that Phil's death is going to somehow be one way that mankind can benefit from it. If this is what you want me to go through, then I will do that. And so when I was sitting with Dr. Schuller, we talked about that and finding meaning in our darkness. And Dr. Robert Schuller says to me, and me and my friend Viktor Frankl, he was telling me about conversations that they had together. He said, we both believe that the core of everyone's issue is their self-esteem or lack of it. That is at the core of everything. So we went down that path and talked about that path, and I've never forgotten it. I always know that if I am disturbed in any way, when in the days I was overeating, if I was reaching for food and overeating, if I was having a bit of an emotional meltdown, I knew that the problem was with me. And somehow I wasn't feeling good enough. And every single time when I would stop and go, okay, Tanya, why are you picking this food up? Or why are you reacting this way? I would come back. And it always came back to, you don't feel good enough in this moment. So I've always known to work on that, not work on, I don't like using that actually, work on feels too white knuckle. Surrender, let go, and know that somehow, it's usually the little girl in me that doesn't feel good enough. We've all got that little person inside that doesn't feel good enough. It was little Tanya who was somehow disturbed and reminded. And that's where big Tanya, adult Tanya, Tanya the woman, would always have to show up and be the one who leads the way. So I'm just going to take a bit of a drink, if you don't mind, because I'm quite hoarse in the... And that is where, as a Tony Robbins coach, we learnt the power of identity, having a strong personal identity. And what makes up your strong personal identity, one of certainty, is a number of things. But the first one is your physical body. How do you walk? Are you like this? Or do you put your shoulders back, put your head back? Walk with pride. Walk with a knowledge that you are a child of God and that you are lovable and that you are worthy. How are you breathing? How are you speaking? How you do one thing is how you do everything. Are you taking care of your body? Do you nurture your body? Or do you soothe yourself with excess food, alcohol, drugs, whatever? How you do one thing is how you do everything. Take care of your one precious body. It's the only one we've got. Take care of it. The other thing that will create a strong personal identity is be a guard at the door of your mind. What you focus on, you will feel. No matter what is happening in your life, you can choose to be in a state of suffering, or you can choose a beautiful state, whatever that looks like. Choose to be in a beautiful state, no matter what you are going through, because there is good in everything. When Phil was first diagnosed and someone said to me, perhaps his death is going to be for the greater good of mankind, I wanted to slap him. But I knew deep down, yes, I know it will be. I don't know what it looks like now, but I trust him that much that I know somehow Phil's death will go on to change lives. And it'll be through books, it'll be through me, it'll be through I don't know how else. But that is actually how it has happened, because I've gone on to be a good and faithful servant. And no matter what, I have chosen joy over suffering. Sometimes it doesn't look like it. My bottom lip's on the ground and it doesn't look like it. But I always have to come back to that. Tanya, choose joy over suffering. I don't know how I'm going with time. I'm going to share with you some of the nuggets. I don't like that word either, nuggets. Why am I using that word nuggets all of a sudden? I'm going to share with you some of the really important things that I know have enabled me to show up and live my one magnificent life. This is our one magnificent life. Do not waste a day. Seeing Phil fight for every final breath was a turning point for me, because I said to myself, do not waste your one precious life. Live to a higher standard. Be an example for others. Show up in that strong personal identity. I forgot the third thing, another thing in strong personal identity. Language and meaning. I've already touched on meaning. What meaning are you going to place on this event? That's a bit about choosing joy over suffering. But also language. Watch what comes out of your mouth. Be very mindful of the language you use. And one way you can change your language and be more positive in the language that you use is ask really good questions. I think I've got that in the book. Really good questions, even as a leader. On a tough day, ask that question. Okay, what's great about this? What is great about this? Because you'll find it. One of my mentors, whose sister was dying of a brain tumour, said to me, I asked myself that question. Okay, what's good about this? Also, as a leader, why am I doing this? Who am I here to serve? I've had some days in Parliament, staying till midnight, had 3 hours sleep the night before, and I've gone, oh my God. But then I stop and think, who am I serving here? And I think about the people who I have spent hours listening to. I think about the hospices and those in palliative care who need more funding. I think about the elderly people who I've gone and sat with in the rest homes. That is my why. Always come back to your why when you're asking yourself those big questions. The other thing I want to share is, no matter what, authenticity. To thine own self be true. Listen to your instinct. No one knows you better than you. So often when we talk about transformation, right, that is absolutely the key. I've coached many people, and I often think, oh my goodness, haven't heard from this person for a long time. I wonder how they're doing. I wonder if I made an impact. And then all of a sudden you get a phone call. It happened to me not long ago. Actually, she put it on Facebook. And I worked deeply with her around her eating issues. And she said to me, Tanya, I've lost 70 pounds since we've stopped working together. And it wasn't because of information you gave me. There's so much information out there. It's because of how you helped me transform. The change was deep and it was lasting change. Let me share a story with you. It's quite a funny one, of when I was really into the whole eating thing as a young person. And I used to keep joining Weight Watchers, thinking if I joined Weight Watchers again, that this time it would work. I was looking for a solution outside of myself, to the point where I was never heavy enough to join Weight Watchers. I at times used to put rocks in my pockets so that the scales would look more, and then they'd let me join. That's how desperate I was to get someone else to give me the solution. It's taken many years for me to remember and to learn the answer is in here. I know the answer already. Do not go outside of yourself to other human beings all the time. Just come in here. And of course, up there. That is one of the biggest lessons I learned, was to stop going out there and believing that everyone else knew the answer, but deep down my instinct, that silent voice that I hear is the one I listen to now. It's so easy to get caught up in all of the noise out there of life, of social media, you name it, and we forget here. But when we truly listen and ask for a solution, he will always give it to us. May not always be in the timing that we want, but he will give it to us. How am I doing for timing? 5 minutes? 10 minutes left. Learn more, do more, become more. Give yourself permission to shine. Learn more. I used to love Jim Rohn, and he always used to say, miss a meal, but don't miss reading for 30 minutes a day. I now listen all the time to podcasts, etc., and I feed my mind continuously. Learn more. Do more. Do more sometimes means having a bit of discipline, no matter what. Every single day, move your body, nurture your body, feed your mind. It does take discipline, but you must make the decision that no matter what, you have non-negotiables in your day. A number of things that you must do every day. One of them for me is to take care of my health. Physical, spiritual, emotional. That for me is a number one priority. A leader cannot lead from an empty vessel. So whatever it looks like for you, take care of your health. Become more. Tony Robbins always talks about it's who you become in the end that matters. How do I want to show up in my life? How do I want to one day have a legacy of what I leave behind? What do I need to do in order to hear that word, that phrase, well done, good and faithful servant? It does mean always remembering that it's not about me. When I was coaching people, when I was a Tony Robbins coach, it was always on the phone. I had a sticker on my computer screen, it's not about you. I had to always remember, listen. Listening is an art that most people don't learn, but it's probably one of the greatest leadership tools that you can master. I always had to remember, keep listening, Tanya. Before you ask a question of your client, ask yourself, why do you need to know that? Is it because you want to know for yourself, or is it going to help them step out of whatever it is that they're in? What is your intention behind that? Oh, I've just lost my train of thought. Let's go on to another one. That'll come back, but I did lose my train of thought there. I was talking about being a Tony Robbins coach on the phone, and oh yes, the sticker. That's where I was going with that. It's not about me. Now, one of the things that I have really had to hold on to, especially during my time as a politician, when rocks are being thrown at you, when articles are being written about you, I've had to remind myself, I prayed before I became a politician, and I believe God put me there for a reason. And during those difficult times, I always took myself back to, you were put here, just trust him, keep trusting him. no matter what they say. And I always remember that saying that if Jesus stopped at every stone that was thrown at him, he would not have gone on to change the lives of the billions that he did. So no matter what is thrown at you, no matter what, never give up on your ultimate purpose of serving others. It's not about me. It's about you. It's not about me. It's about God's ultimate plan. I've been told I've got 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that I had so many funny stories. I got so many funny stories about my mother and father and their big, passionate Croatian stories and how they do things. This book here, when I talk about authenticity, it took me quite a while to write this, probably about 5 years, because more kept happening in our lives with my husband, Grant. And something didn't feel right. And then I made the decision to start again and make sure that God was at the centre of this book. I didn't care if the mainstream people weren't going to pick it up because I put God in it. I started the whole thing again, and I finished it in 2 weeks because I wrote from here. I showed up from here, Tanya the woman, Tanya the servant from God, and it poured out in 2 weeks because I made him the centre. I believe that if you do that, then your life will be beautiful. And just always remember, fear will come. Make friends with fear. That is what will stop you. I now go, hello, fear. See you later. Just let it pass. That's how I'm going to finish. Thank you so much, everyone. God bless you all. Enjoy the book.
Thank you, Tanya. And before you go, I just want to, Tanya has very graciously come out of not feeling well this morning to be with us today. We really appreciate that. Want to honour you for that. And also honour you for the generous gift of your book. I know you're going to get a lot of value out of that. We might have a couple of minutes. I think there's one question. If there's one question, if anybody's got a question for Tanya, put your hand up and we'll come and take that question from you. Otherwise, we'll just go into morning tea. But before we do that, we heard